mostly on that one.
Okay.
Ready, set, go.
Hi everyone, this is Pearl Girl here from boxandmess.com. Today we have our first live interview with Collie from the Real World Denver. Thank you, Collie.
Thank you for having me.
Alright, so we're going to start with a few questions. First, when did you decide to apply and end up doing the Real World?
Well, for me, it was all kind of, everything happens for a reason. I went to Tulane University, and in the fall of 2005, Hurricane Katrina hit. So we had to be evacuated, and it was really chaotic. Everybody had to go to different schools because Tulane shut down. So I ended up going to Boston University, and it was there that I was just walking down the street, and I saw this bar, and I was like, why are all these people applying to work at this bar? So I'm like, let's just do it with my girlfriends, and we got online, and they were like, no, actually, this is an open casting call for the Real World. So we were like, on a whim, let's do it. And there began an 8-month casting process for the show.
Oh, wow, they do. Alright, so how did the being on the Real World Denver affect you in everyday life?
That's a good question. I think that the experience taught me a lot with interpersonal relationships. So I'm sure you recall some crazy characters on my show.
Yes.
And it takes a lot to be the bigger person and say, this is a battle I want to fight, and this is one that I can just let slide. And I think of anything, it really helped me relate to other people well and to have, important relationships in my life and not always resort to, screaming and yelling like I saw some other people do. And it really helped me become more of a better friend.
That's awesome. What did you enjoy most of the show? What was your favorite
My
part?
favorite part of the show was doing Outward Bound Wilderness program, which if you remember, we went into the backwoods of Colorado for weeks at a time, and it was backpacking and it was hiking and it was working with students who had survived Hurricane Katrina. So it was really important to work with these kids because I had a close connection, a shared background, and then just the experience of being out there. I mean, at the end we hiked a 14,000-foot mountain, and it was just the greatest feeling when you get to the top of the mountain and you're like, I did it. So it was a real growing experience.
Do you think the Real World accurately portrayed the events and all of the people in it?
Well, they always say that they can't show anything on TV that didn't happen, so they can't make up footage. But what you don't know is that editing plays a crucial role in how the show comes out. So you might see something and you think it's chronological order, but that actually happened the first week, and that other scene happened the last week. And they put it all together to make a cohesive television show, but it's really not in order of how it actually happened. Or you'll see an interview and you don't really know it's an interview because it's someone who looks like they're talking directly to the camera, but there's actually a producer right by saying, what do you think of Jen's drinking? And you're like, wait, I don't care about Jen's drinking. And they're like, no, you need to say something. So sometimes they try to force these statements out of you, but like I always say, they can't film it, they can't air it if they didn't film it. So it's true to life. They filmed us 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It's just a matter of what they pick and choose to show and how they want to make a TV show.
Yeah. We could tell from watching that some stuff may or may not be,
Yeah, you're like, wait, I wasn't wearing that outfit that day. She was wearing a,
Yeah.
And then you look back at it, and there is some kind of order and some kind of logic, but it's not always exactly how it really was.
Yeah, nice. How would you sum up your experience being on the Real World?
How would I sum up my experience? I'd say, for me, I went 10 days after I graduated college. So it was like every summer I had done something. I had gone to sleepaway camp, I was a camp counselor, I was a teen tour counselor, and this was my summer of doing Real World and living in Denver. And for me, it was 3.5 months of partying and having a great time, but really getting these life experiences that only so few people have. Like, only so few people know what it's like to wake up in the morning and have to get a microphone put on, and you're on camera all the time, and no matter what you say, it's being recorded. So it definitely taught me a lot. I mean, I've never been a self-conscious person, and this definitely brought out the outgoing side of you, and you know that people are always watching, but it also teaches you to be very true to yourself. Because when you see it on TV at the end, you're like, at least that's me. At least people watching, they can think whatever they want. They could like me or they can hate me. But at the end of the day, if I can walk away from it and be like, that's really truly me, then I feel good.
Was it awkward having the cameras follow you around?
Yeah, I mean, at the beginning, you're like, why are you following me? Why are you following me? And at one point when I had mono when I was on the show, and I handled it really well when I went to the hospital, you know. And I was just like, why are you following me? Like, I have mono, I'm sick, I want to go home. And the camera's still in your face. So by the end of the show, you're like, why aren't the cameras following me? And you just get used to it. It's like, one person described it as like having a child with you all the time. I mean, it's funny, there's a lot of rules and a lot of like behind the scenes stuff that go on. So you develop these relationships with the camera people. Like, you may not know, but you can never know their names. So these people live with you and they're in your house all the time, but you don't know their names. And like, some other hidden secrets are, we had a 1:30 curfew. So we had to be home by then, and we couldn't have sleepovers. You could only have 5 people sleep over the house the entire time. You had to give a 10-minute warning before you left the house whenever you were leaving, and you could only go to certain places that were approved by production.
Oh wow. Yeah, we could definitely tell from the hospital, you know. Kind of wondering why they would still keep cameras on you.
Right.
But
I was like, I'm not good with needles, so let's not show this to the world. But we did.
Of course they did. We know you were on some challenges. I think the Inferno, maybe in the Island.
Yep, I was on the Inferno 3 and the Island, and it didn't take long for me to realize that I suck at the challenges. You know what? I always thought it would be like color war, like camp, like rah rah, so much fun, and you get there and you're like, oh my god, it's an actual like triathlon. Like, I just watched the end of the whatever one was on, I guess the duel, and I'm like, oh my god, I couldn't even do the first part of it. It's so physically challenging. That was the problem with the Inferno 3. The Islands was different, you know, it was very much like you're stranded on this island, you know, this is, I just got distracted because that sign said jail. It was like there was nothing to do. There were no day-to-day challenges. So it was like, all I did was lay out and sleep. And then everyone was like, oh, you're not involved in it. And I really wasn't, because it was everybody like fighting behind each other's backs. So I kind of took the just chill out road on that last challenge. But if I do a third challenge, and that's a very huge if, I would like to get past the halfway mark and have competed in a challenge. Like, I've never won a duel or a face-off or anything, and I don't think I'll ever win. Like, the chances of that, I always said if it was like a Jeopardy contest or like Scrabble tournament, I would be awesome. But they don't seem to be coming out with the Scrabble 4, so.
They had puzzles, that was the
right. Like, but then in order to get to the puzzles, you had to have won all these other challenges. So,
yeah.
You know, I think I would just like to do one more to maybe clear my name. But whenever I think of that, I think about having to train for it, and I don't really want to do that. I'm a little bit lazy. So maybe I'll just continue watching them.
Either way, I think it'd be fun. What was the funniest experience you've had on any of the shows?
The funniest experience I've had on any of the shows, I mean, God, there are so many just crazy hijinks that go on, like when we're not on camera. I had really funny experiences in Thailand. Davis and I, we have a clip of it actually, maybe I'll send it to you. We have a clip of us in Thailand stealing, you know, like those bracelets that they write people's names on? Davis and I stole them from like this crazy Thai woman, and then she chased us down the street. So that was pretty funny. I'll try to send you that clip.
All right, that'd be great. Our last question would be, if you could sum up your entire experience, what would you say? Would it be positive or negative, and do you regret anything that you've done?
It's a really good question. I mean, now I'm 25 years old, and looking back on it, I said a lot of things that I wouldn't say now. I did a lot of things I probably wouldn't do now, but when I was 22, that's who I was, and I don't regret it for a minute. I would suggest going on this show to anybody who thinks that they're strong enough to do it. You need to have a really good sense of self and who you are before you can be put into this kind of situation, because it does change a lot of people and it affects everybody differently. For me, all in all, it was a positive experience, and if I was 22, then I would do it all over again.
All right, thank you so much for interviewing.
Oh, thank you for having me. So nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. All right.